Welcome to the Asian Supermarket. I'm your host Christina from America.
And I'm Carmen from Australia. Get ready for a jam-packed episode this week with our friend Allan, talking about his Malaysian-Canadian background, his crazy adventures, and what he's currently up to in Silicon Valley.
So grab your favorite exotic fruit as we chat together with our guest in episode 7. Hey everyone, welcome to the Asian Supermarket podcast. Today we are on episode 7. We have our guest. He was born in Canada. He is born and raised to Malaysian parents, and he is currently working in California. So let's all welcome Allan.
Hi.
So why don't we do an icebreaker? So what's your favorite restaurant in your hometown, Allan?
I wouldn't say I have a favorite restaurant. There's a lot of great food in the Vancouver area in Canada, but I'd say what I'm missing most is probably just this common franchise, Tim Hortons, particularly the ice cap. Is an iced cappuccino.
Wow.
It got me through university, just late nights of caffeine.
So we have a fun fact about that. Before donuts, so Tim Hortons is famous for donuts, right, and coffee. So apparently before they sold donuts, they sold burgers. And Tim Hortons is apparently central to like the Canadian identity. Why don't you talk about how you guys know each other, Christina?
Yeah, sure. So Allan and I actually just met recently last year. We were both in a Facebook group for badminton lovers. So we, met up and then we started playing with each other and we just vibed really well. So yeah, Allan has actually a very extensive background in badminton, I thought, which was really cool. So do you want to talk a little bit about that along with, just a little self-bio about yourself?
I've been competing in badminton since I was around 10 years old, at least up until the end of my high school days. It was like half of my life. It was more important than school for sure. I competed provincially, nationally in Canada, into like the Canada Winter Games in Canada, which is kind of like our mini Olympics within Canada. And I also went to the World Juniors, which was held in Malaysia in 2014. And that was really cool. That was probably the peak of my badminton career. And like after that in university, I didn't train as much anymore, but I helped start like the UBC badminton team, which we kept going for a couple of years, and we actually got bronze at the university nationals.
So do you guys play before COVID, obviously, were you guys playing like together regularly, or was it like not really?
We went like once a week, I think, for a few months.
For
when
like
I was
until
still
closing time.
Yeah, we would play
Yeah.
from like 7 p.m. or so until like 11, I think, and then we'd go get like some Hong Kong food after.
Wow, I didn't even know you played badminton though, Christina. Why don't you tell us a bit about like your cultural background?
So I was born and raised in Canada, in British Columbia, Canada. My parents are both from Malaysia. And so we used to visit Malaysia every few years when I was growing up, like through elementary school and middle school. But then I haven't been in quite some time, not since probably 2014 when I went to play badminton there. But actually, I guess I always introduce myself as like, I'm Chinese Canadian with Malaysian parents. My dad actually says, no, Allan, you can't call yourself Malaysian, because he has a lot of pride in being Malaysian. And he's like, no, you cannot call yourself Malaysian because you didn't really live there. You don't have the right to call yourself.
Yeah.
But I do kind of identify, like, if I'm watching the Olympics or anything like that, I'll cheer for Malaysia over any other countries usually. You don't usually find a sport where Malaysia's facing off against Canada, so I don't really have to worry about that. But I love Malaysia, especially it's mostly for the food. And most of my family and cousins are grew up in Malaysia instead. So it'd be always fun to visit.
Do you have a favorite Malaysian food you can recommend to us?
I'm a big fan of one Hainan Fan or Hainan chicken rice, or just like Malaysian curry with roti canai or prata. Like the flatbread.
Can you speak any like Malay, like Mandarin, I don't know, Cantonese? Like what do your family speak at home? Do you have like a Malaysian accent?
I don't think I have an accent. Well, I've been told I have a Canadian accent. I didn't know that was the thing. But I only speak English fluently, and I can listen in on people talking behind my back when they in Mandarin. Like because my dad would often be explaining to other people that I can't speak Chinese in Chinese, and then I would hear that. But But otherwise, my parents speak a lot of different dialects of Chinese. They can they may not be the most grammatically correct, but they can get by in Mandarin, Cantonese, Hokkien, Hakka. They also understand Malay
Wow.
and then English as well. So it's kind of sad that I only speak English.
Interesting. Wait, Carmen, so you know how you were born in Singapore, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's a lot of similarities in Malaysia, Singapore? Because like the food, when I was in Singapore visiting you, like I've seen that. So do you feel like there's similarities in that then?
Yeah, well, my mom is actually from Malaysia, so
Okay.
so it's like I can relate a lot to the different like dialects and languages that he's talking about, that I was talking about. In my family, it's the same too. Like we mix up a lot of like Singapore and Malaysia is like pretty similar in that aspect. Like we have a lot of different dialects and like languages. It's like a mix between like English and Mandarin and stuff. And in a way, it's like a good thing as well because it's like, wow, like, you know, you can converse in a few different ways. But at the same time, it's like none of our languages, like none of the dialects and none of the languages we speak are like 100%. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, and in the sense, like the food is the same as well because we have so many different cultures, right? So there's a lot of different like influences from all the cultures. Why don't you talk more about like what you do career-wise?
I'm currently working in California. I grew up in Port Moody, British Columbia, but I went to university in Vancouver. So Port Moody is around an hour south of Vancouver. I usually say I'm from Vancouver because it's a more well-known city. But yeah, so University of British Columbia or UBC. I studied mechanical engineering there. I got my bachelor's at the end of 2019. And so from there, I came down to California to work at Waymo. It's autonomous driving or self-driving car company, stemmed from the Google self-driving car project some 10 years ago. So before that, I had spent around a year in the same area in the Bay, just because I'd interned at Tesla I'd done 2 internships at Tesla, a total of a year there as well. I guess my job right now is a systems test engineer. I work with, I like to say I'm like the DMV for autonomous vehicles because basically I test and evaluate the car's performance, and then if it's not good enough, I say send it back, try again.
And I remember we actually talked about this before, but for Waymo's cars versus like Tesla's, I think it's pretty neat, like when you told me, but for others to hear about what differentiates, the autonomous driving for these two companies.
It's a heavily discussed topic, at least in Silicon Valley here. But so like Teslas are fundamentally an electric vehicle company with advanced driver assist systems. Their system in itself is primarily based on like cameras, and they're trying to emulate the human eyes, and then with that make their decisions on the spot as to how they drive. Waymo, we rely on a whole different fleet of sensors. We use our primary sensor is the LiDAR, which is like a laser-based radar. So the sensor shoots a laser out and then it bounces back, and that's how we create an image of our environment. But we also use other sensors, like we also use like radars and cameras as well, but just our primary one is LiDAR. And I guess the difference right now is that we are aiming for like full autonomy, and we're not. And so by that, we are able to drive in almost every scenario, and our goal is to provide like a ride-hailing service similar to like Uber or Lyft, except with a self-driving fleet. We have like riding services in Phoenix, where we're actually giving ride-hailing service for the public in Arizona right now, where like customers will get in the car and there will be no driver, and it can go around the city on its own. I guess in like this aim for like there's like 5 levels of autonomy, like level 5 being like perfectly autonomous, essentially a human driver but better.
Before, when you were working at Tesla, were you working on like a similar kind of project with the autonomous driving, or was it like were you in a different area?
Yeah, so I was not working on the self-driving portion at Tesla. So I had 2 different internships. The first time I was doing reliability test engineering for the charging system. So that's essentially like I got to play with giant thermal chambers, and we would throw different parts and stuff in the thermal chamber and cycle the temperature from really cold to really hot. That's like one example. And essentially, it was trying to put the parts to its limits to see like when it'll break and make sure that it's within standards. The second time I was working as a test engineer for developing. We were developing testers for the production line, so essentially building tools that made the factory production line have higher quality output and at a quicker rate. My role at Waymo is another test engineering role, but it's just very different in nature. I work on a team or a sub team called fault protection for the systems engineering team. And essentially, it's kind of like if something goes wrong in the car, the self-driving car is supposed to be able to mitigate itself and then come to a safe stop. And so my team or my role is kind of making sure that its behaviors are able to do that. If like something goes wrong in the cars in the hardware or the software, can the car like safely come to a stop?
Then do you want to talk about some of your hobbies?
Yeah. So I like to say that I like to go adventuring, which doesn't mean too much, but because I just made it up. But it is a word that I even have on my resume, just because like I feel like I do a lot. I try to get as many different stories as I can. I do a lot of random outdoors stuff, especially in California, because California has a lot to offer. So I've done a lot of like to go on road tripping a lot to the neighboring cities and states. Go backpacking or hiking or skiing. I've been going skiing a lot recently.
You did cliff jumping?
Yeah. So cliff jumping is. So I guess there's this lake near like not Tahoe, but near Tahoe, this small lake that's called Angora Lake, and it's just a beautiful lake for a spot to go swimming in the summer. But they also have these like 40 to 50 foot cliffs and so I think so. I guess I should preface this by saying like I wouldn't recommend doing it to anyone. It's not. It's extremely dangerous. But basically, one day one of my friends had been cliff jumping before, and so we just searched on Yelp like the best spot to go cliff jumping near here, and this lake came up. When we got there, the cliffs were really big. They were like I said, 40 to 50 feet, because you do have to jump with the proper form or you will get severely hurt.
God.
But it was extremely thrilling. Like I think I jumped the first time I did it was in 2018, and I think I did 2 jumps that day. I screamed the entire way down, but but it's like no sound would come out. And then I did the jump again, and I tried not screaming, but I ended up with an extremely bloody lip because I just bit myself.
Oh my God.
And that was really bad. That didn't go away for like a week. And then I went again in 2020. That time I came out with like a bloody eye. So I wouldn't,
my God.
because I jumped down and I just stared at the water, and like I didn't think about closing my eyes for some reason because I was just staring at the water get closer. So it was really thrilling. I definitely won't do it again because my friend actually he jumped with bad form, and he actually came out like we didn't find out until later that night, but he had trouble breathing, and it turns out he actually fractured his sternum. The next day I took a video of myself just saying, "Dear Allan, Justin, and like Hivansh, you will not jump off the cliff again." Like reminder to like when you're like, dear future Allan, please do not jump off the cliff again.
Yeah, I think you must be the most adventurous friend I have out there. Like, you not only travel a lot, but you do all these like crazy activities. Have you been bungee jumping or skydiving by any chance?
I've never been bungee jumping, but the week after cliff jumping in 2018, I went on Groupon and I bought tickets for skydiving.
Wow.
Because we jumped off a cliff, now we had to jump off a plane.
Cliff was just a work up to the plane.
Yeah, but cliff jumping was definitely scarier. Just because at least skydiving you have you have an instructor, or at least I was strapped into an instructor. And also at some point when I was free falling for skydiving, it was like I had a moment of clarity, and it just felt like I couldn't really do much anymore. So I couldn't really control it. So I was just kind of thinking like, Are we still falling? I can't tell.
Well, do you want to talk a little bit about your experience growing up in Canada as a Asian Canadian? I don't know, like, your neighbor, because you weren't in Vancouver, right? Vancouver is more like Asian dominated.
Yeah, I'm from Port Moody, or which is like it is the suburbs compared to Vancouver. It's around an hour drive, or an hour south by car. Slightly bigger city is that's right next to us is Coquitlam, which I probably haven't heard, no one's probably a reader, but and these are like when I say they're suburbs, they're not like the stereotypical 90s American suburbs that you people might be picturing. It is kind of just like a smaller city with nicer built roads and everything, but it's kind of like what Mountain View is here compared to SF. Yeah, so in that area there were a lot of Asians, a lot of Koreans and Chinese, and I guess in high school, like my friend groups were usually pretty diverse in terms of people from both different cultures and backgrounds. But as I definitely as I went to university, I probably had more Asians or more Chinese friends just because sheer number while going to Vancouver. Actually, we call it the University of Billion Chinese for sure. There's a lot of good Asian food. You can get a lot of great Japanese food in Vancouver. You can get a lot of great Korean food in Coquitlam, the other city I mentioned, and a lot of bubble tea in general. I guess so when I say Asian culture is probably not like the traditional Chinese or Malaysian culture, but more like this subtle Asian trait kind of culture. So I guess growing up, like my parents weren't I wouldn't say they were the stereotypical Asian parent. Like both my parents speak fluent English. They spoke English to me growing up, and to me and my siblings. I have an older sister and a brother, and they spoke English to us growing up. And they didn't really. I'd say they were strict to some extent, but they didn't force us to, like, when we didn't practice piano, then they didn't force us to stay in piano, or they didn't force us to finish swimming as long as we were adequate to some extent that we won't die if we ever get thrown in a lake or something. So yeah, they wouldn't force us to continue all of these things that you kind of get stereotypical Asians might, and they didn't demand that we always get straight A's, but and they really, like, it was only like when we started to struggle that they got worried, or that they would intervene. But if we were trying our best and we got like decent grades that could get us into university, then it was always okay. I think it was more like me being extremely strict on myself when it came to academics. But my parents, I'd say, were quite serious about badminton, and strict to some extent because I guess that's where a lot of the money was going to. So if we didn't take that seriously, then what was the point of it all? And so that was kind of the way they raised us. But yeah, and a lot of this, like my sister, who's 3 years older than me, she kind of paved the way for a lot of it. When it came to like badminton, she joined first, and when it came to academics, she always she was 3 years ahead, so she was always there to help. So I think I definitely had a boost in a lot of things because I had my sister, and my brother is actually like I have a twin brother, so I always had that constant competition to do better personally.
Then when you moved here, did you feel like there was a was it the same cultural feel for you, or do you feel like there was kind of a difference in Asian Canadian culture versus Asian American culture?
I don't think I felt too much of I didn't feel a culture shock really. I think when it comes to the second gen North American kind of Asians, I think it's actually we're all very much we're very similar. I think and we all had somehow we all had a very similar uprising. I think that's where I like to call it like the subtle Asian traits generation, or the subtle Asian traits aspect of it, whereas I think the big difference about coming down here was just like, wow, all these big tech companies are it was just really surreal to see a lot of different tech companies.
Do you feel any is there much difference between, personally, from my opinion, I feel like Canada and America are kind of so similar, sometimes they're just the same country, but is there a lot of difference between, I don't know, the way you guys speak, or the lifestyle, or I don't know, is there a different culture, food, I don't know, they're quite similar?
I think there are slight nuances and very slight variances between the two. I mean, the typical Americans are the American culture seems to be more extreme, which I think what Christina was kind of alluding to earlier of like the sense of extremism and I've learned a lot more about politics here. I guess I care a lot more about politics here than I did in Canada. With a few people have pointed out the way I say different words. Like for one thing, like bag. Like backpacks. I say bag, but all
Oh,
my American
bag.
friends say bag. Like egg and bag. But I like to make fun of that by saying like, do you say bagel? You don't. You say bagel.
Bagel.
There's
That's
also,
true.
Wait, what do you say, Carmen?
Bag.
Bag?
What?
Bag.
Oh,
I
did you
don't know.
know?
I didn't know there was. I didn't know there was another way to say it.
Yeah, no, there's a lot. Did you know her name? I call her Carmen, but her name is actually Carmen.
Carmen.
Right?
Like in Australia, we don't have a big emphasis on the R's, right? So when I went to like Canada and America, when I was like ordering bubble tea and stuff, they'll be like, "What's your name?" And I would be like, "Carmen," and they'll be like, "Huh?" And I'd be like, "Carmen," and they'll be like, "What? How?" And I'll be
And
like,
after
"Okay,
that, it's Carmen.
and they would be like, "Oh, okay."
No, like you also say bean, right? But we say like
Yeah,
bin.
I've been there. But you guys say I've been there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I say bean. I've been
I
there.
say bean.
I don't say bin. Wait, you guys say bin?
That might be a me thing. I'm not sure if that's all Canadians or if it's just me. There's
Wait,
also
what do you guys say, Christina?
Bin.
It sounds weird to me.
Like I've been there.
It sounds like a rubbish bin, like I've been there. It's like,
but we don't say bins here. We say like trash can or garbage can.
Oh, there's also so there's one thing I've noticed that so in Canada we often like if you say there's often like multiple words for the same thing like we say like washroom, restroom, or bathroom interchangeably. But when I came here and I'm at a restaurant and I ask where the washroom is, I just get a stare and a look because nobody understands. Americans here just say bathroom and they only say bathroom.
Yeah.
And they like to point out that they only say bathroom.
Someone says like a washroom. Do you not understand what that is, Christina? Will you be like,
No,
what? Because like
no,
even though
I
it's
mean,
not common for us to say washroom, if
yeah.
someone said it, I would like no, I'd be like, okay, they mean like.
No, that's because I've been abroad. So now I'm thinking, is it just America that's different? Because like in Europe, when I was in the UK, right, they say washrooms and stuff. In Australia, you guys say washrooms. And then, we use Fahrenheit. In Canada, do you guys use Fahrenheit or Celsius? Yeah, see, so I think America just wants to be like different. Like I know what washroom is, but I am sure I can find people that don't know what washrooms are.
It's happened to me multiple times where I just get a blank stare because and then when I say washroom and I actually I didn't really care about whether I said washroom, restroom, or bathroom before.
Yeah.
But after moving here, because Americans pointed out to me so profusely, I kind of make a point of it to say washroom.
And you guys have a prime minister, right?
Yeah,
instead
we
of a
prime minister instead of a president.
How about in Australia?
We have prime ministers as well.
How did you guys celebrate Chinese New Year?
I guess we celebrated it or I guess just family gatherings and getting hongbao from all the parents, but I guess because I didn't have too many cousins in Canada growing up in Canada. I only had 2 cousins that they were brothers in Canada, and then but all of their cousins were in Canada with us, so we always celebrated Chinese New Year and all our family gatherings with them. And I think like Chinese New Year versus Christmas versus Thanksgiving, it was always just a potluck, and they always had turkey. It didn't really matter which holiday it was. We always had turkey. Actually, I think that's a Canadian thing. We have turkey on Thanksgiving and we have turkey on Christmas. Like we always had, but I guess it was usually just potluck and try to make Chinese dishes if possible for Chinese New Year, and then getting home. I don't think I did anything too special. I mean, I lit the paper lanterns a few times before. When I came to California, I celebrated just a giant gathering at a family friend's place, and they would just invite any Chinese people they knew.
Oh my God.
Over, so it'd be a huge gathering of people and just more food. But I guess in terms of Western culture versus Malaysian culture, Um, I'd say I think my parents probably adopted Western culture more or less, like in the sense of of course they would cook, like my mom cooked dishes that were kind of just a fusion between Asian and Western dishes, and or like and she would kind of just make her own recipes and not just cook Chinese dishes all the time, which is cool. Like we were experienced to a lot of different things. In terms of culture, yeah, I don't know. I'd say in Malaysia, there at least there's kind of this laid back or chill kind of feeling, and where you can just be sipping on your Milo or your teh tarik, which is your Malaysian milk tea, just at noon, just having like chilling with your friends. Like my dad is from, but maybe that's more my dad's. My dad is from. He grew up from an island community, a small island called Labuan in Malaysia, and so they are is a very small community of, and they're very chill there. Everyone owns a shop for some reason, and everyone lives in the floor above their shop. And you're just kind of sitting, you're there all day, and then you go to the shop next door to buy your things, and they come over to you to buy your shop stuff.
Do you like durian and stuff? Because I know
I
that's a
do
big
not.
thing in Malaysia. You do not?
No. My dad loves durian. My parents like durian a lot. My dad would buy durian flavored coffee whenever we visit Malaysia, and then he would drink that, and it would just make the whole house smell like durian.
Oh my god.
Have you tried it, Christina? Durian?
Yeah, no, I like durian. I like durian,
Really?
jackfruit, stinky tofu. Yeah, but I don't
Wow.
like 1,000-year-old egg. You guys know the black thing?
Oh, really?
Century egg?
Yeah.
A century
It's
egg.
so good.
Oh my god, no, I can eat those, but I can't eat that.
Do you guys have that restaurant chain called Din Tai Fung where you guys are?
Uh,
Dude, you know they have like, do they serve the century egg there? Because their century egg is like the only one that I can eat. It's
Oh,
so
really?
good. Yeah,
Wait, how do
like,
they
it's
is it
different.
like mixed, or is it literally just the egg?
It's just the egg, right? And they have like
Yeah.
slices of ginger or
Yeah.
something.
Uh-huh.
It's so good. Like the
really?
Din Tai Fung one is like the only one that tastes good to me. So you should try it.
I find that among most of my friends,
Yeah.
all the ones who were born in Asia and then came down here love durian, and all the ones who were born here,
Oh.
or as in North America, just dislike durian. I thought that was a common thing, but you're my outlier
Interesting.
now.
Yeah, I'm your outlier. Maybe because like my family really but your family likes it too. Because I'm like, okay, I started off when I was young eating durian popsicles, like ice cream bars.
Really?
I was like, oh my god, it is so. Have you had it, Carmen?
Yeah, I've had durian ice cream,
Yeah.
but I didn't start with that. But yeah,
Oh,
it's good.
okay. I was like, oh my god, it is so good. And then I had the real thing. I was like, oh, this is pretty good too. So yeah.
You had like a slow introduction to it instead of just like the whole thing where it's
like yeah. No, I was like, maybe because like Westerners, when they smell food that smells bad, they automatically associate it as being nasty. You know what I mean? But like for like Chinese Asian culture, they eat a lot of like intestine, like weird stuff. So they're kind of like, oh, even if it smells bad, they're still willing to give it a try. But like a lot of like American Westerners were not very open-minded to strange dishes, right? So
I don't even think durian smells bad though. Like everyone's like durian stinks.
really?
So when I smell it, I'm like, it smells fine. Like I can't even, what are you hating for? It smells great. Like
So when I was doing engineering competitions and during my university degree, with other people from across the country, they'd be making fun of me because I'd be wearing a scarf when it was like 5 Celsius. And they say like scarves aren't supposed to come out until like -20. So I guess it's the same thing.
Dude, that's
like,
so crazy.
They're used to the cold.
Yeah, no, when my family from Singapore or Malaysia, when they come here, it's like, I'm sorry, Christina, I don't know like Fahrenheit, so I can't translate this.
Yeah, I know, that's why you see my face is like kind of blank. I'm like, I'm just imagining
like
things.
It's like 20 degrees, right? And it's like windy and it's like really nice weather. And they're like wearing like their puffy jackets and their scarves and stuff. And I'm like, what? This is like so comfortable, It's like aircon weather. Like, why? But yeah, I guess it's all relative.
20C is what, like 42F or 50F?
Christina, we are on a global podcast. You should learn,
Yeah,
like,
I know. No, I decided.
Meters.
Yeah, no, after this episode, I'm going to learn all, like outside measurements so I can translate for everyone.
Yeah.
9/5 times Celsius plus 32.
Oh God.
9/5 what? Plus 32. Okay, I'm gonna
9
learn this
over
too so
5
I can translate.
times Celsius
Okay.
plus 32 equals Fahrenheit.
Oh
I thought-
God.
Oh,
This podcast has
okay.
become so educational.
No, we have to learn. We have to learn
Oh.
this. We have to learn the measurements as well for feet and meters.
Yeah.
Because earlier when you were talking about the cliff jumping off with the feet, I was like, I have no idea how tall that is, but I guess
Oh, sorry.
it's
I
very
jump back and
tall.
forth between metric and imperial all the time. Like I measure my height in feet, but I weigh myself in pounds, but I use that meters and kilometers.
Yeah,
So,
no, because for
Oh.
me, like the only reference that I have to feet and inches is like Subway, because you know Subway, they have like the foot long. So when you say 20 feet, I'm like, okay, that's like
Oh.
20 Subway foot longs.
Oh my God.
So yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show, Alan. It was
Yeah, thank
nice
you.
talking to you about your extreme adventures and your job. Very interesting. Everyone, thank you for listening. Let's stay tuned for episode 8 next week. We have a 1.5 generation girl, our friend from Shenzhen, China. She moved to US at a young age and she's worked abroad a lot and moved back to SoCal, so she will be in the same time zone as Christina. And yeah, thank you for coming on the
Yeah.
show.
Thank you so much. It was great chatting with you.